With the Venmo debit card, you can Venmo everything. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit Venmo.me/debit to learn more. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. From improving emergency response times to protecting against cyber attacks, local, state, and federal governments are innovating with Google AI. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American Innovation.
Do you know where Elon Musk got his name? I mean, he got it from his parents, obviously. But then there's the Elon lore.
Elon is a family name, but there's this other backstory. His father talks about it. It's taken on this significance almost as a matter of myth.
Franklin Foer, from over at The Atlantic, he knows this myth well. And because we're talking about Elon Musk, the myth involves a Nazi and a sci-fi novel. The Nazi was Wernher von Braun. He's been described as the father of space travel.
Von Braun, as a genius, had many talents. Writing novels was not one of them, but he did write a novel called Project Mars, which was science fiction that tried to anticipate what life would be like if we ever had the opportunity as a species to colonize the red planet. And he goes really deep into the weeds of this, and he starts to imagine what a government on Mars would look like. And it would be a technocracy, and it would be ultimately ruled by a benevolent dictator.
This sounds like Elon Musk's dream.
Well, as it happens, Wernher von Braun had a name for the beneficent dictator of Mars, and it was the Elon.
Whether Elon was named after the Elon or not, you can see the appeal of this story for a guy like Musk. He sees himself as the Elon of Mars, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's his dream. And it's a dream that's based on all of the science fiction that he read as a kid, which describes engineers who step in and save humanity from apocalypse by helping to build colonies in space.
Fast forward a few decades, and Musk is well on his way to fulfilling his mythological destiny. He's talking about launching a Mars-bound rocket next year. Meanwhile, the proposed budget for the American space agency, NASA, has been slashed, even as Musk's company SpaceX encroaches on what has historically been NASA's bread and butter, space travel.
Over time, his company, SpaceX, has begun to provide essential services, not just for NASA, but for the whole of the U.S. government. Supplies, transport, crew, but it's more than that SpaceX launches satellites and maintains satellites. And in total, SpaceX has estimated or has said that there are $22 billion worth of contracts that it's received from the federal government. And SpaceX is essentially indispensable. There's no replacing SpaceX because there is no rival to SpaceX.
What does that tell you about how the U.S. government is working? Because it doesn't seem great to me.
It's not great.
It feels like we're remaking NASA in the image of Elon Musk.
That's where we're headed. I would argue there's some cultural cost to that shift, because what NASA did was it did have this scientific element associated with it. And Musk is mostly associated with the power of the rocket. And there's something, to me, a little bit empty about that obsession with rocket engineering, because it doesn't really go to any of the important scientific, really deeply spiritual questions that NASA was once concerned with.
Today on the show, how Elon Musk is ushering in deeper change at NASA. Change that may leave you asking, who is space for, anyway? I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it. So your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Let's start with some brief NASA history. So when was it created and why?
So in the 1950s, late 1950s, the Soviets started to launch satellites into space, and it caught the United States by surprise, and it began to scramble. And the United States had to make a decision about the future of its space program, which is that would it try to compete with the Soviets just as an expression of the military, or would it launch a civilian program to compete with the Soviets? And the government decided, Eisenhower administration decided that it would launch a civilian space agency. When John Kennedy comes into office, Kennedy is not very interested in space, but the Soviets send Yuri Gagarin into space, the first human to go into space. And then the same month that happens, we have the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. And he decides almost spontaneously that he's going to change the narrative by taking the most ambitious plan on the NASA shelf and implementing it.
Going to the moon.
Within 10 years.
This cost a lot of money, right? Like $28 billion was what we spent on the lunar program. That's like $300 billion in today's money. It's just hard to think of a president being able to push something like this through now.
There were 400,000 people, all told, who were working on the Apollo program at the peak of the program. That's just staggering, the amount of resources that we were throwing into this program.
Was it worth it?
Ultimately, maybe. I don't think it's there's a clear-cut answer to it. But what it did do successfully was it captured the public imagination because Apollo missions were broadcast on TV, and a huge portion of humanity tuned in to watch Neil Armstrong walk on the moon.
Oh, jeez.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
I mean, it was a really bizarre thing if you think about it in terms of the resource investment and what there is to show for it. But I think what it did demonstrate at the time was that government is actually capable of doing amazing things when it has the resources and it has this sense of idealism and ambition backing it.
After the Apollo program, NASA wanted to keep going with its exploration of space, right? Like, what did they pitch as their next big thing?
So just after Armstrong walks on the moon, NASA goes to the Nixon administration and it uncorks kind of its dream wish list, which is that it wanted to go to Mars by the year 1982. It wanted to build an International Space Station. It wanted to build a space shuttle that would go back and forth between Earth and the station. It wanted to build nuclear-powered rocket ships that would be capable of going all the way to Mars.
That's so wild to me because, it's 2025. We have not gone to Mars.
Yeah. NASA pretty badly misread the room. Nixon, who is a prisoner of his grudges, didn't like the idea of spending all this money on this thing that would have just burnished John Kennedy's legacy because Kennedy was his rival. Vietnam had happened, and the economy was starting to groan under the debt.
So the vibes are really different.
The vibes were different. And so instead of greenlighting the maximalist program, he greenlights the space shuttle and the space station, which are kind of a fraction of the program. But there's no real clear sense of destination. It's like, what is the space shuttle? It's like a space shuttle, but where's it going? And what's it going to accomplish? And NASA never really had compelling answers to that question. And so NASA was a swaggering organization in the 1960s that was willing to take incredible risks because it had so much engineering talent within. It understood what it was doing. But when we start to move into the space shuttle era, NASA makes a series of choices where rather than keeping that expertise in-house, it ends up ceding all of this power to contractors.
Is that because it's cheaper to do that?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. It's they just didn't have the money to spend, and so they just crafted a bargain with the contractors where it let the contractors own some of the underlying intellectual property, which meant that expertise shifted from NASA to the contractors themselves. And it meant that ultimately NASA's engineers started to get further and further away from the actual development of the rockets and the parts and the systems themselves. So they became less confident about what they were doing, more deferential.
Yeah. I mean, as you talk, I can feel a sputtering almost. It's like there's the surge with the lunar missions, and then it just sounds like things really slow down and the innovation stops to a certain extent, in-house at least.
Yeah. And just to step back, it's like the government did something so impressive with Apollo, and it doesn't want to let go of its ability to do this impressive thing. And so it keeps persisting, but there's not clarity.
Isn't private business supposed to bring its ingenuity to the federal government? That's the whole conservative idea behind contractors and, getting private businesses involved with the government. The energy is infectious kind of thing. Sounds like the opposite.
I think that was true when it came to some of the old defense contractors, that they were creatures of this military industrial complex, and they were so enmeshed with the government and they were bureaucratic themselves. I think if we look at SpaceX and if we want to give Musk his credit, he actually is innovative, and he did manage to find ways to engineer rockets that were exciting and that did bring some new energy and new life to the enterprise.
Yeah, tell me about Elon Musk and how he enters the picture as a contractor with NASA.
So Musk gets deposed from PayPal, which he'd helped found a company that got bought by PayPal. And so he's looking to figure out his next new thing. And he'd always read science fiction. He was always interested in space. But the way he tells the story, there's a moment where he's coming back from a party in Long Island and he's talking to a friend about what he wants to do next. And he says, I really want to do something in space. And he goes to his hotel and he logs onto the NASA website, and he's shocked at how NASA doesn't have plans to go to Mars. And so he decides that this is going to be his contribution to humanity, is that he's going to devote his career to getting to Mars. And so he gets a warehouse in suburban Los Angeles and literally just starts to build rockets.
How quickly is he selling rockets to NASA?
He benefits from incredible timing because NASA in the early 2000s is beginning to start to think about phasing out the space shuttle, but it still needs a system to transport astronauts and cargo back and forth to the space station. And so it's desperate. So almost off the bat, before he's done very much of anything, he starts to get grants from the Pentagon and then starts to get contracts from NASA when he hasn't even actually launched a rocket yet.
But even though Elon Musk benefited from the government sort of needing the technology he was trying to develop, there was a moment where SpaceX was kind of on the brink, right? It didn't look like it would survive.
Yes.
What changed Elon Musk's fortunes?
So in the Obama administration, Musk is really having a hard time successfully launching rockets, and he's burning through huge amounts of cash. But it's at this moment where the Obama administration decides that rather than rely on the traditional defense contractors, it's going to try to find a way to tap into this emerging space capitalism. And the Obama administration ends up giving Musk a really big contract to be that provider. And so at this moment when he could have gone under, he was basically bailed out by the Obama administration.
We really should underline the irony of the fact that Elon Musk was brought in earlier this year to slash government spending and fire government workers. But Elon Musk's ventures have been so dependent on the federal government.
Yeah. In my piece, I described this as being kind of a story almost out of science fiction, where like in every story about technology, the monster, robot, or whatever it is, ends up spinning out of control and ends up consuming the inventor and the people who created it. And that's kind of what's happened with Musk, that having helped make him a very rich man, helped make him a very powerful man, he turns around and uses that wealth and power in order to eviscerate the very thing that helped to create him.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world where 340B hospitals mark up drug prices and PBM middlemen charge billions in hidden fees. Meanwhile, Americans subsidize the research and development for new cures. Other countries benefit, but don't pay their fair share. Crack down on the middlemen. End the free riding. Lower drug prices. Go to balancethescales.org to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
So let's talk about where things are now. Last year, 95% of rockets launched in the U.S. came from SpaceX. And these are rockets, it's not just like going to space, right? It's also about satellites. So it's about telecommunications. So it sounds like Elon Musk is really in this catbird seat. What does that mean for NASA?
So what it means is we have somebody who's emerged essentially as a monopolist in a field that is essential to the security of the United States. And that type of dependence is totally dangerous over the long run.
It seems like space is incredibly important to controlling the future because of everything that you're saying. I mean, you quote Lyndon Johnson saying, whoever controls space controls the world. It feels like maybe that's more true than ever now.
I think it is because of the nature of the way in which warfare has changed, the way in which communications has changed, that global communications increasingly will run through space. It already does run through space for the large part, but it's that's the way it's all going to run. If we ever fought a war with China, it would involve a fight for domination of space. There's no question that its centrality to power has only increased in this century.
It does feel like we're beginning to see some pushback, but it's not especially strong. Like, I look at, for instance, last September, Senate Democrats were arguing reliance on SpaceX posed grave national security risks. That just seems fair. And then, of course, there's the fact that Elon Musk has a tenuous relationship with Donald Trump, now president, and that may put his relationship with the U.S. government in some kind of danger. We could see that because Musk personally selected the person he wanted to head up NASA, Jared Isaacman, and that guy was very publicly not given the job by Donald Trump in the end. Maybe explain that story, what happened there, and how you see that impacting Elon Musk and his relationship with the federal government.
Right. So Jared Isaacman is a guy who ran a startup, made a lot of money, had a deep interest in space, bought himself a seat on a SpaceX rocket as a space tourist, ended up through his holding company investing in SpaceX. It's hard to argue that he wasn't beholden in some way, shape, or form to Elon Musk. That said, I happen to think he's a smart guy and had a lot of interesting ideas. But when Musk and Trump begin to fall out, Trump decides that he's going to try to hurt Musk in the place that he knows will hurt the most, which is that he announces that he's going to withdraw Isaacman's nomination to be NASA administrator. And the ostensible reason for this is that Isaacman had given money to Democrats. But by withdrawing that nomination, Musk takes it as like the worst thing that Trump could have done to him. And he begins to really vent in heated ways against Trump on X.
This was the first time that Musk talked about Trump being in the Epstein files, right?
Exactly, which ignites a lot of the, brings us to this moment in politics where we're at right now. Talks about creating a third party. Trump talks about maybe deporting Musk, who was born in South Africa. And it's kind of crazy to me that with all of this back and forth, and with Trump being Trump and his desire to really inflict damage, that even despite all of that, the government doesn't have recourse. Trump actually can't take revenge against Musk because the cost for the United States would be too high.
Just because there's no ready replacement for what he does?
Exactly.
I mean, Trump has threatened to cancel all of SpaceX's contracts. What would happen if that actually went forward?
The GSA, the General Services Administration, looked at this and they determined that they couldn't do it because his satellites are essential to the military's ability to communicate. He couldn't do it, but they couldn't do it because you'd have astronauts who would be stranded in the International Space Station. Musk provides actual services to the government that are essential, and there's no place else to turn to fulfill them.
I mean, Trump is said to be looking for a SpaceX competitor. Like Senator Ted Cruz put a provision into the big, beautiful bill, setting aside $4 billion for Boeing's space launch system. Is that something that could move forward?
There is this other rocket that NASA is developing, but it's just not going to have the versatility that Musk has with the Falcon 9. Nobody is developing a rocket to rival Starship, which is the vessel that ultimately will be able to make its way to Mars. It's not clear that Musk is going to be able to build that because the engineering challenge is so steep, but he's getting close. He's getting close.
For his part, President Trump has proposed slashing NASA's budget by 1/4 and its workplace by 1/3. But he also wants to set aside $1 billion for a mission to Mars, which sounds right up Elon Musk's alley. Yet, when it comes to planning what to do once we actually get to Mars, Frank says Elon Musk's reach may exceed his grasp. Musk has ideas, like a future colony where the government is a direct democracy based somehow on his social media site, X. He's always maintained it's a public square. Elon Musk imagines people driving vehicles based on Cybertrucks. Oh, and about those people. Musk wants Mars to be populated with its own species. humans bioengineered to live there through selective breeding. Frank says the more you hear about these ideas, the wilder they become.
I guess the most classic example of this is like, when he starts to go on a roll and talk about colonization, and there's these teams at SpaceX that are working on what a Martian city would look like and how it would operate. And he'll say, the classic example of this is that he's talked about exploding nuclear weapons over the poles of Mars in order to create a greenhouse effect that warms the planet, and then having to do this time and again. And it's just a crazy idea. It would require so many rockets. There's no plausible way that any of this makes any sense.
That seems to be a problem to me, because right now, the U.S. government is trying to set aside actual U.S. government money to fund a mission to Mars. If you're telling me that the person who's, driving that ambition has no vision for what happens after we get to Mars, or no real idea of how we're doing it and why, and the reality, that's alarming.
Well, he has a vision. It's just a sci-fi vision that doesn't actually have tangible, executable plans attached for it. And yes, it's alarming. I mean, I think to me, the whole idea of spending money to get to Mars is ludicrous. It's just not a worthy government investment.
I wonder if in reporting your piece, you ever thought about an alternative timeline, especially for NASA? Like, NASA was proposing back in, 1970, how to go to Mars and asking for the money for it. Like, do you ever think, what if that happened? And we were actually doing this the NASA way as opposed to the Elon Musk way.
I mean, the truth is that maybe there would have been another great hurrah a la the moon. But it's, you look at the moon, we haven't been back to the moon for a very long time. And part of the reason we haven't gone back to the moon is it's kind of pointless to go back to the moon. We got some great images. It was really inspiring for a period of time, but it's an uninhabitable surface. There's no geostrategic value to being there. And so we did it. It was great. It was cool.
We put a flag on it.
Yeah, we put a flag on it.
Reading your writing about Elon Musk and NASA, I really can't tell how you feel about NASA. Like, you write both that NASA is in a diminished state, and you express frustration that the shuttle program ran these incredibly repetitive missions to the space station. But you also write that NASA displays extraordinary acumen in science and confronts the greatest mysteries of the universe. So, which is it?
I mean, I've always been very attracted to the Carl Sagan view of the cosmos. Carl Sagan was the Cornell astrophysicist who had a show on PBS that talked about the mysteries of space and astrophysics. And for Sagan, science was an enlightenment project. It was a way of helping understand ourselves and our place in the universe. And to me, the fact that the government and that NASA is engaged in those projects, whether it's the telescopes that stare back into the deep history of the universe, or the mining of asteroids that can help us understand the primordial building blocks of life, or whether it's the satellites that NASA operates that are turned back on this planet that help us understand just how precious and precarious life on this surface actually is. That to me feels profound and important and a public good, and something that the private sector is never going to be able to replicate. And I look at the broader Trump war on expertise and on science and on the production of knowledge. I see NASA's vulnerability as being both representative and just a tragic casualty of this assault. And I think culturally, we've drifted to a point where, unfortunately, the public doesn't care enough that we have these extraordinary resources doing things on behalf of all mankind, as was NASA's slogan.
But we love watching people rocket into space.
Yeah, it's like there's this very primitive part of our brain that likes powerful rockets in the same sort of way we like muscle cars. And that to me is very hollow. That's an empty fetishization of something that's not even that sophisticated of an engineering problem.
Frank, I'm really grateful for your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Franklin Foer is a staff writer over at The Atlantic. He's also the author of The Last Politician and World Without Mind, The Existential Threat of Big Tech. Here's a little reminder. Every week, we release a special bonus episode just for Slate Plus subscribers. This week, get ready. I'm going to sit down with Slatester Dan Kois, who has been a writer here for forever, but is so much more than that. Like, he just developed our new word game, Pairs. Really? Anyway, his latest article is an investigation into a shocking crime and a stunning cover-up that rocked the environmental movement. You're going to want to know more. So subscribe to Slate Plus and tune in. That conversation will be in your feed around lunchtime tomorrow. And that's the show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, Ethan Oberman, and Madeline Ducharme. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Go track me down on Blue Sky. Say, hey, I'm at Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.